To some, he is a swear that they use at the end of a sentence for dramatic effect. To some, he's a hippie with long hair, or a really nice guy with good morals. The cross on your necklace, or a killjoy, or the baby whose birthday is responsible for the PS5 you got this past Christmas. Or maybe he's even from Korea. Just kidding. I've never seen 21 Jump Street, so I don't know what that reference means at all. Maybe he's a Jewish teacher, a prophet, a first century religious leader. But who is he to you? The first 4 books of the New Testament are called the Gospels, and they each provide accounts of Jesus' time on earth, but all from different perspectives. And what's interesting about the book of John, and that's what we'll be reading and studying from today, is that when you compare it to all of the other Gospels, it stands out for its emphasis on Jesus' identity as the Son of God, and how Christians can respond to that, and all that's done in this incredibly poetic and in symbolic way. There's this pattern we see throughout the book of John where Jesus, he'll perform a sign or a miracle or make a claim about who he is, which leads to some sort of misunderstanding or controversy. But ultimately, his claims about who he is, it forces those around him to evaluate who they believe Jesus to be. It forces them to decide who Jesus is to them. And more specifically, Jesus makes 7 statements about who he is. We call those the I am statements in the book of John, and that's what we're diving into in this series. These statements, they serve to point to Jesus' divine identity and the role he plays in saving humanity. And one of the things I actually didn't really connect until I was preparing for the sermon. I guess I just missed that day in Bible college, my bad. But all the way back, towards the beginning of the Bible, in the book of Exodus, there's a man named Moses. That's the Prince of Egypt guy, by the way. He has this encounter with God. God appears to him through a burning bush, which is crazy. But in that interaction, God declares to Moses, I am who I am. And essentially, this phrase confirms the fact that God is self-existent and is not dependent on anyone or anything. He exists as a result of his own power and has no beginning and no end. He is set apart from any other false god for that reason. And so for Jesus to say the words I am is a really big deal. It goes beyond just some metaphorical pleasantries. He is in fact proclaiming that he is God. And each of these statements that we're going through in this series, they highlight a specific way that Jesus meets the needs of humanity. The late American pastor, A.W. Tozer, once said, what comes to our minds when we think about God is the most important thing about us. And there is so much truth to that statement. And today, as we continue to study the I am statements that Jesus made in this book, I want to challenge you with a similar idea, that your view of Jesus will impact your eternity. Your view of Jesus will impact your eternity. And why is that? Well, because what we'll learn today is that it's essential to have in order to have a relationship with God the Father, you need to have a relationship with Jesus. Jesus is essential for a relationship with God the Father. And just like the rest of the claims he's made about himself up until this point, this one does not shy away from having impact and significance, and it's definitely a bold, bold claim. And so let's dive into it. When we take the book of John, we can divide it into 2 different parts, the first part being the book of signs. And these chapters, they record 7 notable events that we refer to as miracles or signs that ultimately illustrate Jesus' identity as the Son of God. And then we refer to the second half as the book of glory. And here we see Jesus' final teachings, his death, his resurrection, and all of the power and glory and victory that comes within that narrative. So John 14, it marks the continuation of Jesus' last words to his disciples before his death. And he's getting pretty candid and free with his speech because he's about to die. In the chapter before, the disciples, they're a little bit confused and concerned because of some of the heavy things that Jesus is talking about. He's telling them that one of them will betray him. That's where you get that classic TikTok sound. Is it me, Jesus? That's where it comes from, in case you were wondering. He also alludes to the fact that he will be leaving them soon and is going to a place where they can't go with him, which rightfully so, like, would be pretty confusing because they've just spent like the past 3 years literally going everywhere with Jesus. So they're not getting it to the point where it's becoming quite alarming for them. And here's what Jesus says in John 14, starting in verse 1. Don't let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God and also trust in me. There's more than enough room in my Father's home. If this were not so, would I have told you that I'm going to prepare a place for you? When everything is ready, I will come and get you, so that you will always be with me where I am, and you will know the way to where I am going. So Jesus, he directs them away from worrying and invites them to do the only thing we can do when we're feeling distressed or worried or discouraged, which is to trust in God and also in him. And that's a pretty powerful statement because he's declaring himself to be equal with God the Father. When he says, my Father's house, he's referring to heaven, a place where there's plenty of room, and at the perfect time, Jesus will return to earth to set things right, to bring perfect peace and justice. And he assures the disciples that they know how to get there. But they still don't get it. It continues by saying, no, we don't know, Lord, Thomas said. We have no idea where you're going, so how can we know the way? And fair enough, like, hey, Jesus, actually, we have no idea where you're going. Is it like to like your dad Joseph's house, or like the temple, or like Chick-fil-A? Like, we don't know what you mean. Could you just like send us a pin like when you get there, or just like share your location on Find My Friends, because we don't know where you're going, so we definitely don't know how we're gonna get there. And then Jesus replies with this powerful I am statement. Jesus told him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one can come to the Father except through me. Tonight, I want to take a deeper look at the statement. We're just going to go line by line, keeping it really basic here, so we can better understand what Jesus is saying about his identity and what that means for us, for Christians, or if you're here tonight just navigating, exploring what faith is, or even if you're skeptical. Each of the I am statements that we're going through in this series are beautiful and they're deeply significant, but I would argue that this one is probably the most controversial because of how definitive Jesus is, and we'll get into what that means. Again, your view of Jesus will impact your eternity, so it's important to understand what his words truly mean. So the first thing that Jesus declares about himself, he says that he is the way. Driving is not like my favorite thing. Like I'm not bad at it. don't get it twisted. I'll do it if I have to. When I woke up Thursday and Friday, I was like, man, it looks like a really good day to work from home. But yeah, like if like the visibility or like road conditions are just like even a little bit off, I just know it's not going to be like a pleasant or fun or very enjoyable experience for me. I don't know, like I just like feel like I should, I don't know, be like foraging leaves in a forest or like frolicking in the woods, not stopped on the Henday on my way to work in the morning. Like I don't know, like that's just like not the life that like I feel like I was meant to live. Maybe that's good for some of you. That's just like that's not for me. But something that helps mitigate my aversion to the roads and like some of the stress that I feel is just like having my maps on. Have I been to my best friend's house and my boyfriend's house multiple times? Yes. Do I know how to get there? Yes. Is it just nice to have like a little safety net? Yes. I see people arguing this. Someone knows, and you're real for that. And if you're gonna judge me for it, please stop doing that because it's mean. Stop it. And I get it. You know, some of you can just like drive one place, and then all of a sudden you just perfectly you know where you're going, and you automatically just know which lanes to turn into. And God bless you. Like, what's it like to be God's favorite? I don't know. Please stop making the rest of us feel bad, okay? But one thing that we all have in common, no matter what our driving preferences are, is our need for direction in this life. You know, one of my favorite things about being a young adult pastor is watching young adults just navigate these years of their lives and what they're going to look like. I've had countless coffees with people where I just get to be a sounding board, when it comes to, what school do I want to go to? What should be my career path? Should I date that person? Should I break up with that person? I don't know, I'm just a sounding board. But at this age especially, we're navigating our early young adults years. We all want to know where we should go. And I know for me, as I've navigated in my mid-20s, when we go to elementary school, we're all the same trajectory, middle school. And then we're all on the same trajectory to high school. And then we're all on the same trajectory to college. And then it just starts to get a little blurry after that. But ultimately, we all just want to figure out what on earth are we doing and what do we actually need to do to get there. And so Jesus declaring himself to be the way was pretty powerful because of how the Jewish people understood that concept. Talking about the way or the path people should walk was quite normal for them, and we see this idea recorded throughout the Bible, particularly in the Old Testament, and that would have been familiar to the disciples. In Deuteronomy 5:32-33, it says, and Moses, he was talking here to the Israelite people, giving them a message from God. He says, so Moses says to the people, you must be careful to obey all of the commandments of the Lord your God, following his instructions in every detail. Stay on the path that the Lord your God has commanded you to follow. Then you will live long and prosperous lives in the land you are about to enter and occupy. Isaiah 30:21. This is a portion of a passage that's a blessing to the Israelite people. It says, your own ears will hear him in reference to God. Right behind you, a voice will say, this is the way you should go, whether to the right or to the left. And in Psalm 27:11, it records David's prayer to God, where he says, teach me your way, Lord. Lead me in a straight path because of my oppressors. So the disciples, again, they had an understanding of what God's way was and how they should walk in it. And now Jesus was saying that he is the way. So what does that mean exactly? Okay, picture yourself in a city that you've never been to. You have your trip all planned out. It's all good to go. Or so you thought. You're getting a little lost. You're getting a little stressed, a little worried. You're going to miss your train. You're going to miss your stop. You're going to miss your flight. You're just spiraling a little bit, and your phone's dead. That's great. I'm done. I'm done. At that point, I'm a citizen of wherever I'm at. But you take a breath, you just chill out for 2 seconds, okay? And then you just, you're like, I have nothing to lose at this point. You go up to the very first person that you see, and you ask for directions to the train station. And they say, okay, you're going to take a left up 2nd Street, cross the square, take the 3rd right, and then you're going to see the donut mill, and there you're going to take a slight left turn. And then they just kind of keep going and going and going. Also, sorry, you're not in Red Deer at the donut mill. I just thought that'd be funny. Anyways, the directions are maybe somewhat helpful at first, but by the time you get to the donut mill, you're lost again. Let's go through that scenario one more time. But the person who you ask for directions for, they say, I'll show you the way. And they actually walk with you where you need to go. And for the sake of this illustration, they're not a kidnapper or a creep. You will not be the subject of a true crime podcast. I promise. That's not where we're going with this. But in that second scenario, the person is the way, and because of them, you cannot miss your destination. That is also what Jesus is for us. He goes beyond just merely giving good advice or just giving us directions. He comes alongside us and says, I'll show you the way because I am the way. He takes us by the hand and shows us the path we should take. He gives us the strength and courage we need to take every single step. He doesn't just point on the map or send us a pin. He is the way. I think one of the biggest challenges we face in life is if we truly believe that Jesus is the way. Do we see him as a helpful tour guide that we sort of hold at arm's length a little bit? Do we just approach him for directions and then just try and figure it out on our own though? Do we feel too ashamed or too distant to even ask him what the way is? Well, wherever you're at tonight, I hope you know that Jesus he's ready to meet you wherever you're at, whether you're in the best season of your life or you have just absolutely hit rock bottom, or you're not even sure if he's real. He will show you the way because he is the way. The second declaration Jesus makes about himself is that he is the truth. I'm a pretty agreeable person. I have a pretty long fuse. It takes a lot for me to really get angry or to really blow up at someone. Don't test me. But with that being said, I'm not perfect. I do have a couple pet peeves. I won't blow up at you, but I'll judge you. I'll judge you in here. And it'll bug me a little bit. So pray for me, I guess. But here's a solid 5 pet peeves I could think of as I was writing the sermon, and if any of these apply to you, be better, do better, okay? Number 1, and I have a feeling this might be some of you. Anyways, people who don't use a signal light. Oh, come on, you're in church for a reason tonight, okay? I don't know, guys, the last time I checked, it wasn't a suggestion. I don't know, you guys. It's been a minute since I've read my little driver's ed book, but I don't know. And you not using your signal light, I didn't know you were gonna turn right. I could have taken my turn. I didn't know you were turning, and now I'm stuck at the intersection for 3 years. Thank you so much. Thank you for the little jump scare when you cut me off. I really appreciate it. Okay. Hopefully this is less of you. Number 2, when people don't turn off their signal lights. Oh, that's a word. That's a word. Listen. I know you're not. I know you're not changing into my lane. I know you're not because it's been on for 4 minutes. But I'm scared. I don't want to be living in your blind spot for too long because you might just I don't know. So I'm driving at a weird pace. It's uncomfortable for me. It's uncomfortable for everyone else around me. I don't know how you're ignoring the noise in your vehicle. I don't know why all of my illustrations are about cars. But here we are. Okay, number 3. When people spell my name wrong, on the internet. Here's listening, people. Okay. Do not wish me a happy birthday on Facebook. Send me an email. Send me a Teams message. I don't care what it is. If you're going to spell my name wrong, if it is right in front of you, there's nothing worse than happy birthday, ABBY. Even my name is there. It's my feed. I get it. Some of you have easy names to spell, okay? Some of you, what's it like? But that gets me. That gets me if it's right in front of you. And ABBEY, is the E inherently annoying? Yes. If you have a problem with that, call my mom. Nothing I can do about it. Okay. Number 4. No, never mind. I gotta be careful with these, actually. I'm gonna start beefing with people that I'm actually friends with. But number 4, people who don't dispose of waste properly. I think I may be the only person in the city of Edmonton who uses the green bin. And I know, I'm gonna get to heaven one day. I'm gonna learn a little extra jewel on my crown for all my composting. I know I'm gonna get it. Until then, if I see you pop a little piece of paper in the garbage bin, you see me pick that up, put it in the blue bin, you can say thank you, okay? Save the trees. The last one, a little more unconventional, and was the whole reason for this tangent, is when people use the phrase, my truth, that's my truth. I feel I don't really hear it that much anymore, and I've been a lot happier because of that. But before you come at me, if that's something you say often, let me explain. This phrase is sort of at the epitome of postmodern culture, the postmodern culture that we are currently living in. Its inherent flaw is in the fact that truth can be relative to anyone, to any individual. What may be true for me may or may not be true for you. It places the emphasis on the subjective belief or opinion someone has, and it labels it as the truth. Now, there's nothing wrong with holding the truth of your story as it is in alignment with reality and fact, but at that point, it is just the truth, not your truth. Anyways, that's a lesson for another day. But I bring this up given the climate of our current culture. It can be really hard to differentiate what is actually true. Is what we see on the news and social media, what we hear people in positions of authority say, are those things actually true? Our beliefs about the world and the larger narratives we've been told to believe, are they actually worthy of our acceptance? That is all extremely complex to navigate, and the desire to grasp and understand truth is something that we also see expressed within the Bible. In 2 different Psalms, David articulates his desire to understand the truth of God. In Psalm 25:5, he says, "Lead me by your truth and teach me, for you are the God who saves me. All day long I put my hope in you." And Psalm 86:11, it says, "Teach me your ways, O Lord, that I may live according to your truth. Grant me purity of heart so that I may honor you." The thing about truth is that no one up until Jesus actually embodied it. And the expression of moral truth and strong character, those things, they go hand in hand. If we had someone come up to share the project who was like a serial cheater and they came to talk about the importance of faithfulness in a relationship, you would literally get up and leave. That would be not worth your time. If someone who swore like a trucker came up here and talked about the importance of purity in your speech, you would laugh because they're a hypocrite. If someone who stole from the church and from vulnerable people said, "You need to give all of your money to the poor," you'd be leaving here and you'd be talking with your friends and you'd be like, who was that? And what gave them the right to say any of that stuff? And that's because moral truth is more than just words. It's actions. It's seen through a lived example. And that's where me and every other Christian leader that you see up here, that's where we all kind of have to bow out, because we can teach you about the truth, but ultimately each of us, we have all fallen short. Jesus is the only person who has ever lived who can say, "I am the truth." As one theologian put it, the fact of moral perfection finds its realization in Jesus. John chapter 1, it starts with this incredibly powerful prologue about who Jesus is. And notably in verse 14, it says this: "The Word became flesh and made his dwelling place among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son who came from the Father, full of grace and truth." So really, Jesus is the Word of God in human form. And because of God's word that is full of grace and truth, Jesus is also full of grace and truth. And because of that, we are actually unable to find truth in anyone or anything else. All other things, all other people are flawed. All other things are man-made and will one day pass away. And so what are we anchoring ourselves to as truth? Is it philosophical or political ideologies, our personal feelings or experiences, culture or science or authority figures? Or is it Jesus, who is the physical embodiment of moral truth that will last forever? Next, Jesus says that he is the life. The timing of this is slightly ironic because he did just tell the disciples he was about to die. Yet he proclaims to be the physical expression of life. And as humans, we are constantly searching for ways to make our lives better. One fateful day, I don't know when, I don't know who it was, but someone said, "I'm going to invent deep dish pizza." And that made my life a lot better, and maybe some of you too. Whoever came up with memory foam mattress toppers, they made my life way better. Every night I have an incredible sleep because of them. And don't get me started on waffle cones, because we will be here all night. But, we seek enjoyment through music and entertainment and good living conditions, technology, convenience, rest, travel, relationships, and so many other things. And just like with knowing the truth, we also see this intrinsic desire to find life laid out in the Bible. Proverbs 21:21 says, "Whoever pursues righteousness and unfailing love will find life, righteousness, and honor." While the world may tell us that the best life comes from satisfying our own desires, fulfilling our own goals, preserving our youthfulness, whatever it is, this actually counters what Jesus says about where life is truly found. He says that we find the good life when we actually choose to surrender our lives. Hear his words in Matthew. It says, "If you try to hang on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake, you will save it." And later on in John 15:13, "There is no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friends. And Jesus leads by example as he lays down his life on the cross to atone or to compensate or to make up for the sins and mistakes of all of humanity. In John 10, 17 and 18, he says, "The Father loves me because I sacrifice my life so I may take it back again. No one can take my life from me. I sacrifice it voluntarily. For I have the authority to lay it down when I want to and also to take it back up again. For this is what my Father has commanded." And because of that sacrifice, because Jesus is the life, we have life. We can experience his goodness now and forever in heaven one day because he has given us that gift. Part of my role here at the project is overseeing the baptism process. And oh, you guys, I'm so excited. I was literally like tearing up on my way here tonight. I'm so excited for just being able to celebrate with these young adults in our community. And it's just genuinely, like, it's so much fun. We get to film some like testimony videos with people who want to, and it's just so fun because every time, like, especially when I like don't know the person, I'm like, yeah, like, let's hear your story. 9 times out of 10, like, my jaw's to the floor. I'm like, you went through that? Like, that's what your life used to look like before? There's no way I would actually know from the way that God has radically transformed and changed your life. And it's just the best. It's the best to see. And we'll get to hear even some of those stories tonight, which is incredible. But the common factor of all of these stories is that each person, they all chose to surrender their lives to God. They came to the realization that doing things their own way, it wasn't working, that they were in need of a savior. But when they chose to give up their lives, they actually saved it and now are living in the life that Jesus brings them. And there's just like this whole change in someone's demeanor when that happens to them. And maybe you've experienced that in your life, where your default is now love and joy and peace rather than anger or bitterness or pride. True life exists because of Jesus, and only in him can we truly live life to the fullest. The next part of Jesus' statement is one of the most exclusive passages in the Bible, and it tends to rub a lot of people the wrong way. And that's when he says, "No one can come to the Father except through me." And this sentence serves as one of the strongest biblical arguments against religious pluralism, which is this idea, this belief that multiple religions are true and valid, and they'll all lead to the same place, whether that's like some sort of God or some sort of ultimate truth. And this is something that is so boldly argued to be false in the Bible. Early on, when we read of God commanding his people, he says to not serve, to not worship any other God, but only to worship and obey him and him alone. And Jesus doesn't leave any room for multiple paths to God in his statement. He doesn't aim to keep people out, but he clearly defines only one way in. And pluralism, it presents a couple of different fallacies. All roads definitely do not lead to heaven. Just like not all roads lead to any specific destination. If we're going back to the whole directions thing again. If you were to ask me for directions to the donut mill in Red Deer, that's crazy. And I just told you, just take any road. All roads lead to the donut mill. Amen. You'll end up just about anywhere but the donut mill. If I said that to you, you would walk out, you'd realize how much time you wasted, and you just look it up on your phone and get the directions yourself. So no, not all roads lead to the same place. And in addition to that, different religions that make contrasting claims about God, they cannot both be true at the same time. How can all paths lead to the same thing when each religion teaches something different? So that ideology, it falls on its head rather quickly. And maybe you're here tonight and you're wrestling through your own religious convictions. And if that's you, we are so glad that you're here. And we hope that this is a safe and authentic place where you can truly work through what you're going through and just wrestle with Christianity and maybe other things that you're working through as well. And because I love you, I might not know you, but I love you, I want you to know the truth about Christianity, okay? And that truth is that there is no room for any other religion or moral code. Only Jesus can lead you to everlasting life with God in heaven. okay? No other religion or belief in the universe or anything will bring you life. In fact, they will ultimately lead to eternal death where you are totally and completely separated from God. And I don't have time to get into what the Bible says about the afterlife and hell and all of that stuff, but I can genuinely say hell is a place I don't want you to go. I don't want you to go there. And again, we can't unpack everything, but whether, we see the hell as a place that's dark or fiery or complete separation from God, it is not a place that you want to go. And the only way you can escape, the only way we can escape the reality of hell is by believing in God, the triune God. That's one God, three persons. God the Father who loves you, who created you, God the Son who died for you, and God the Holy Spirit who lives inside of your heart. And so if that's you, again, please take time to explore Christianity. And if you just maybe have questions, we would love to answer them. You can go to the Connect booth after the service. We'd love to chat with you and just point you in the right direction. But I would be a terrible pastor if I just stood here and made really dumb jokes about the donut mill and didn't explicitly tell you that without God, you are destined for an eternity of pain and suffering. And I get that that's not fun to hear, but you have to hear it. And maybe you're here tonight and you're a Christian, but you fall into one of these two camps, okay? Number one, you're more of a fire insurance Christian, you did the whole pray and Jesus is in my heart now, that type of thing, but it pretty much stops there. You come to church, which is great, but your soul is actually starving because of what you're getting up to the other 6 days of the week. You may know a lot about God even. You may know a lot. But if you're to truly examine yourself, you actually don't know God at all. You intentionally do things that over and over and over again that go against God's will for your life and justify it by saying, well, I'll ask for forgiveness later. Or maybe you fall into the second camp and you do all the right things. If we had a gold star for being a good little Christian, I'd give you 12 of them. And while there's nothing wrong with doing the right thing and please keep doing it, you equate your identity in God's eyes with how good of a Christian you are. If I just serve at the project this many times, if I just read my Bible this many times, if I just never ever listen to bad music again, I only listen to Toby Mac for the rest of my life, then God will love me. Those are both not places I want you to be. Where your relationship with God is merely lip service on a Sunday night, where you're trying to earn God's love with what you do. In that passage, Jesus says, no one comes to the Father except through me. Not except through knowing a lot about me or except through your own works. It is through him and him alone. And you may not be working through your religious affiliation, but you need to truly ask yourself if you are actually on the right track. Jesus being the only way to God can be a pretty tough concept to accept, to grasp, because of how inherently exclusive it is. But the invitation to receive salvation, that is open to all, no matter who you are, no matter what your background is, no matter what you have done. It is God's desire for all to come to the knowledge of him. So as we wrap up for tonight, I again want to ask you, who is Jesus to you? Because it doesn't matter who Jesus is to you unless he is the way, the truth, and the life in your own life. So it's important to ask yourself, who or what is your path? Is it Jesus, or is there someone or something else that you're following? Maybe it's your significant other, or your career trajectory, or a destructive habit that is leading you and is taking the place of authority in your life that should be reserved for Jesus. Are you walking in Jesus' way or in your own way? Who or what do you hold as truth? Is truth something you're creating for yourself or seeking through the wrong type of way? In a world where we are constantly fighting to know truth, are you testing things to see if they are in alignment with God and his word? And in what or in whom do you find life? Do you look to the world to satisfy things that are only temporary? Or do you look to Jesus as your source of life, not only for now, but for the rest of eternity in heaven? Are you spending time with him through disciplines like reading your Bible and praying so that he can fill you with the purpose and peace and fulfillment that you truly desire? Or is he just an afterthought at the end of your day? The I am statement this I am statement tonight, I'm the way, the truth, and the life, is more than just a statement. It is a daily reality that truly has the power to change our lives forever. When we feel lost in life, he is the way. When we feel confused and we don't know what to think, he is the truth. And we feel like we're just dying on the inside and we don't want to keep going. He is the life. And because of him, we can be in full and right relationship with God, both now and for forever. So it's a little bit of a hard-hitting message. It's a little bit of a hard-hitting statement. But I hope you know that, and even in Jesus' words, he's coming from a place of love. You know, he knows each of you by name, even if you don't know him. He knows your story. He knows everything about you. He knows the number of hairs on your head, and he desires to have a relationship with you. And later on tonight, if you want to make that decision, we will have an opportunity for you to do that. I want to thank you guys for taking the time to listen, and we're going to get ready to transition into our time of baptism. Who's excited for that?